Where do weeks go, Mr. Lingard? Where do weeks go? We're back for more Championship Rugby League with the main man himself, and happier this week. How are you?
Yeah, all right. Yeah, it's nice to be back on there after a win. Not particularly a great win, but a win nonetheless.
I was expecting one of those green things around you, back in the winner's circle. Happy days, mate. Happy days. Look, before we get into the games and just we'll pick out some key matchups from the weekend. Of course, this morning before we've recorded this afternoon, Bill Quinn has been announced as departing from Oldham. Obviously, we've been speaking about Oldham earlier in the season. Bill's been there for quite a few years. This will be concerning times. I mean, it's like we're saying this most weeks. We had North Wales last week. We've now got Oldham this week. It's concerning times again for a traditional club that is Oldham.
Yeah, it's usually concerning about where they go from here. You know how much immediate danger are they in without Bill Quinn's backing. It's it's well established that the squad that they've got, and they've spent a lot of money putting that really, really good squad together. And if that financial backing is not there, then you can't pay them people. So it's very, very concerning. Unless they can get somebody coming in pretty damn quick, it's looking like it might be a bit of a fire sale and people having to shoot off to other clubs, and that you just wonder where that puts Oldham as in a situation both short term and long term.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say we've probably never seen a season like this, have we? Certainly from the point of it being kicked off. You know, we had a couple of it. We had Salford last year in Super League, but since the kick-off, we always knew we were going in without Featherstone. But then we've had rumours, of teams having to raise funds, teams going like North Wales now Oldham. Hasn't been announced that there's major issues, but you get a feeling with Bill no longer there that they're going to have to do something, as you say, pretty quickly to still be around. And it's heartbreaking. It's soul destroying. And I think I'm going to say it as a fan, because I don't know what you can say as somebody with skin in the game, but as a fan, what we're seeing now, and I'm just going to say it, is the output of, dare I say it, we just haven't done enough as a sport over the last 20 to 25 years. And now the chickens or hens or whatever they are coming home to roost, and it's really affecting the Championship.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think it's I think part of the realisation, I guess, that now with the implementation of IMG and the scoring system and certain clubs that are miles down the pecking order in terms of the points that they've got, it's very, very difficult for clubs to see a short-term solution or even a mid-term solution to try and get into Super League or be on the verge of getting into Super League. And I guess now we're in that situation where these owners are sort of thinking, well, what is the point of me putting hundreds of thousands of pounds in year after year after year after year if it's going to be a 10-year project for me to get there? And I think that's what you've got to question now with the system. It is how it is with the IMG points now. There's a lot of clubs now that might previously have had a realistic aim, a realistic ambition, and a pathway to get there. I know they're saying that you've still got a pathway with the IMG, but I think the points are heavily weighted that much now for the teams that have been in Super League for that long. It's very, very difficult for teams outside Super League who've not had that financial structure, that financial income coming in from the distribution money from Super League for decades, that it's very, very difficult now to suddenly generate that money and build from scratch and get to where you want to be in a short space of time. So I think we're now seeing some of the owners that are sort of thinking, well, what's the point?
And it's not just that's the trading conditions, isn't it? I mean, we don't want to get political, but with the price of oil and all of that type of things, floodlights. I mean, luckily we're coming into summer rugby now, maybe not so much, but actually putting on an event that is a rugby league match.
Yeah.
From an energy perspective, costs money, and of course those costs are going into Championship level that is already scratching for funds. And like I say, that also isn't helping at this moment in time, is it?
No, it's not, and that's one of the reasons why us at Sheffield we're now moving grounds over to Sheffield FC. It was costing £7,000 a game to put a game on at Sheffield for us to be there, and the difficulty in generating your own sales through food and drink it were very, very difficult because you're a tenant at somebody else's ground. I know it's not ideal for some people because it's a little bit further outside of Sheffield and a little bit of a travel, but it just weren't financially viable and sustainable for us to continue playing at a place that was costing £7,000 a game to play there. At least now we're moving to the football club. The owner owns the ground, and we can start generating our own income and generating food sales and beer sales and all that sort of stuff, and trying to generate a little bit more of a game day atmosphere that's our own. But yeah, the financials of running a sports club, a rugby league club on a week-to-week basis, the training facilities. If you haven't got your own training facilities and the fields, the gyms, and everything else that comes with it, it's a huge outlay.
Yeah, I'm sure it keeps the owners awake at night without doubt. And I mean, look, and this again brings into focus what's currently going on in the wider game. The NRL investment I watched the interviews on the bench this week. I've watched Back 10 with Kyle Amor, with Martin Jepson, who actually I thought spoke really well. Actually, I've got to give him his due. And what was really pleasing from a Jepson perspective, probably the first CEO that I've heard actually say this, that he's all for it, and it's his responsibility to remain in Super League. That he's putting the game first, and Castleford, it's down to him and his team to keep them in there, which I thought was really, really refreshing. I don't know if you've had a chance to pick that up, but that's what he was basically saying. If for the good of the game, we need this investment, and we're at risk. It's for me, once the investment comes in, to make sure we're not at risk. And I found that really refreshing, that he was going to vote with rugby league in mind, and that's what we need at this moment in time, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think for too long, I think clubs have voted in their own self-interest to make sure they safeguard their own future, rather than looking at the game as a whole. And I think that's always been a bit of an issue within rugby league. And I think the only way that we're going to get around that is to have some sort of independent people in there that are making the decisions and taking the decisions away from the club. The club shouldn't run the game. The sport should run the game. The governing body should run the game and not be directed by the clubs. And the governing body and whoever's going to be in charge of the game needs to make the decision based on what they think is best for the game as a whole, not for just a dozen clubs or 10 clubs or however clubs you might want in that top division. So I think it's something that we certainly need. The game as a whole, whether it's the international game, the Super League game, the Championship game, or even the grassroots game, something needs to happen where we've got to start building the game from ground zero again, because I think we've gone that far now down the line that people are wondering what's going to happen in the future for rugby league. There's that many teams that aren't playing anymore, that many teams that are disbanding, lack of people that are coming through. So we need to start growing the game from ground zero again.
We do, mate. And I think, the way it's reported, I mean, again, we were speaking on Super League Raw Weekly last night, and if you don't catch Super League Raw Weekly, do, 8 p.m. every Tuesday night. We're live every single week. But we were talking about, I don't know what it is, but we're great at talking our sport down. The press are great at talking our sport down. Martin Jepson, again, in his interview, said that, they sent a rugby union correspondent to the Ashes test, and all he did was slate league, because that's what a rugby union correspondent will do, all that kind of good stuff. Attendances, I mean, look, Super League at the moment is buoyant. I mean, it is, and I say buoyant in terms of the KPIs, not necessarily money in the game and where that money comes from, but viewing figures and things like that. It is in a good place. It's moving forward. And this weekend just gone, I've had countless articles saying, attendances were down on last week, but you've got to take into account, where are Toulouse and Catalans playing? That's the first thing. Are they home? Are they away? And what we did, and we do this every week, just to give a bit of clarity to it, is we look at like for like versus last season. Forget week on week. You can't do it that way. At the end of the season, we'll find out the big picture. But week on week, what was this fixture generating last year? And at no point did I read this weekend that on like for like fixtures, last year versus this, the attendances were up over 5,000 in the stadium in Super League. That's a good news story. That's the way it should be presented, because then it's the fear of missing out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you with me? And I just don't understand why we've always got to be negative, and that does trickle down to the Championship. Because if we're not going to talk Super League up, by Super League being talked up and getting interest in Super League, there might be young kids that all of a sudden discover, I don't know, Wakefield, Leeds, whatever, but they live in Sheffield, and mum and dad can't afford to take the kid over to Leeds. But hey, guess what? Sheffield have a rugby team. So there's that opportunity, but you've got to hook them first. We've got to be more positive, haven't we?
Yeah, I just think we're mirroring society as a whole. I think society is very, very negative. But you look at I guess if we're going back to rugby league, if you go onto any club social media account, I reckon if you scroll through any story on a club social media account, I reckon 90% of the comments will be negative. Whether it's about the players, whether it's about the administrators at the club, whether it's about the coaching staff, whether it's about the referee from the previous game, whether it's about, I don't know, whether there's enough toilet roll in the toilets on a game day or whatever it might be, there'll be something that people find to complain about. And I think that's just society as a whole. We look at rather than looking at the positives, we look at the negatives because it's easy to be negative. It's really difficult to actually go out and look for a positive. So I think the game as a whole is basically following and mirroring what society is. And again, not going into a social thing, but I think that's social media. I think social media has generated a generation of people that just want to be negative and type something on the screen and not have any outcome over it because they're sat on the settee in their underpants and they know there's going to be no fallout from it.
100%. Well, if we're going to go toilet tissue, mate, what you're basically saying is, yeah, if the toilet tissue is there, pay a bit of attention. If it's three-ply, scented and quilty, come on, let's have a little bit of it. That's what you're basically saying, isn't it? But anyway, all good fun. Look, I mean, to sum this up, we spoke briefly about it last week, and I think because of the question mark over Oldham, and that, let's see how that one plays out. We know about North Wales. I think it's coming into focus now, the need for the game to reel up. They tried this in 96, and at 96, we were in a different spot. I think, in terms of traditional rugby league supporters, they were entrenched still in 1996. We've come a long way since then. The likes of, and I'm just going to call out some names, certainly the Cumbrian teams, their attendances has dwindled over the years since 1996. And it's the same at the Oldhams and the rest. Back then, we were passionate. We're not merging. No way. Not on our watch. We want to keep our clubs the way they are. I'm not going to go there today, but I do think there's some big decisions there where the proximity between clubs is close. Is that the right option, or is the right option feeder? And we spoke last week about feeder. And I think that, one of the biggest bonuses in terms of geographical spread of our game will be if a part of this NRL monies and injection, if they're good to the word in terms of the infrastructure and grassroots, if they ensure that there's a feeder system in place, that could grow the sport in, dare I say, Sheffield. Before we came on, I gave this example. If you look at Leon Hayes at Warrington, who, and don't know, we know that, seasoned Super League players do sometimes go out on loan when they're coming back from injury. But through a feeder club system, Leon Hayes, great player, great career, hopefully ahead of him. 1 week is at Salford, 1 week is at Widnes. You can't market that if you're Salford or you're Widnes because you don't know where he is from 1 week or the other. But if Warrington and Salford were linked at the hip, as an example, I'm not going where Widnes is because it might be political, But actually, the two clubs have a great relationship. Let's be honest about that. If you knew that you had Leon Hayes at Widnes for the majority of the season, because at the moment he's down the pecking order at Warrington, you can market that. And even if he's called back to Warrington because of an injury, there'll still be other Warrington players that are there. And there's a draw to that. There is a draw to that. That you've got these players that are going to be playing at a Widnes, at a Salford, at an Oldham, at a Sheffield. And it gains interest. So not only in terms of a better product, in terms of the foundation and the structure of the leagues, but also the market to be able to market a game with higher profile players that would bring. The more I think about it, the more I think it's the logical route. We've got to look at this feeder option and how we can link clubs, and that's where we grow the sport. I might be talking nonsense. What's your view?
I think it's one of them where you've got to be really careful because it's quite an emotive subject, isn't it? You look at the historic clubs and the traditional clubs, and I'm coming from that point of view as well. I grew up as a Featherstone fan. You mentioned 1996, and I was on the field at half time in that game. The Rovers forever cold than ever. I can remember that game 100%, and it was a little bit of a different time then. And obviously, the majority of my adult playing career, coaching career, whatever you want to talk about, it's at Batley, which is another traditional historic club. So I'm coming from it from that point of view. But I think for me, the game's got to do something drastic because a lot of clubs are surviving on 500 people attending and 600 people attending and even less. So unless you've got that financial backer that's willing to come in and put the money in season after season after season for not a great deal of return, there's got to come a point where we need to do something drastic, and whether that is mergers, whether it is the feeder club. I think for me, the feeder club is the more realistic option that you might actually get that through. I think there's still going to be some reluctance to the merger side of it because clubs still want their identity. And I think if there's, and again, this is going back to rugby league and maybe contradicting myself about being negative. I think we've always done things half-assed in rugby league to a certain degree, where we've not thought things through or put a long-term plan in place, and we change things from season to season to season to season rather than take time. But I think if we are doing this feeder club thing, then you can make a standalone competition like they have got in Australia in the Q Cup and the New South Wales Cup. So you can still keep your individuality, you can still keep your autonomy to a certain degree at the same time as having the partnership with the Super League club in a separate competition, in a standalone competition. Absolutely. So it's something that you could do where you could have, it would be a closed shop to a certain degree, it would be Super League. But as I've mentioned before, Redcliffe Dolphins in Australia, they were a feeder club for a number of years playing in the local competition there, where they had years and years and years where they grew the sustainability, they grew the fan base, they grew the infrastructure, the playing squads that they've got, and everything else that were in and around that. And then they broke out on their own, and then I was an NRL team in their own standing. So there is a blueprint there to follow. So I think personally, that might be the avenue that we need to go down, where we have the standalone competitions where teams can still maintain that individuality and the uniqueness that they've got at the same time of being given a financial hand and a hand with the playing structure that they can send full-time players down from a Super League club and develop in the second tier competition.
Yeah, and it's easy for me because obviously I support a team that's in Super League. But I went to Sheffield University, so there's a link there. If I'm a Sheffield Eagles fan, as I'm sitting there now, Super League is a distant dream anyway. I mean, let's be honest. Let's be absolutely honest. It's a distant dream anyway. So to have a link with a Super League club where we maintain an identity, and in the same spirit of an 1895 Cup, we now have a competition where it's a proper competitive competition. Because if all these feeder clubs have got a parent club, it's going to be competitive because they're all going to have the opportunity of one developing their own through the pathway, but also these players that aren't getting a game in Super League, and we know the reserve fixtures are hit and miss anyway. So it should be a higher standard of rugby league. It should be a more competitive element of rugby league. And if you go on and win our version of a Queensland Cup, whatever they call that competition, or you go and pick up the 1895 Cup under Sheffield Eagles, you're not celebrating. Now I say that Sheffield were paired with Wakefield. I'm just going to throw a name out there. Those fans aren't going down there as Wakefield Trinity fans. They're going down as Sheffield Eagles fans. The badge is Sheffield Eagles. And surely that's got to be better than at this moment in time, being in a system where the dream of Super League is beyond you anyway. But actually coming back to your argument, what we saw in 96 and what we know about the NRL is that when they are going to, if it's a system whereby they're going to do what they're doing at Perth at the moment and at Papua New Guinea, where they're going to look for where do we set up our next franchise, a team like Sheffield's not in a bad spot. It's a city. Same in Newcastle, same in Midland Hurricanes. Yes, same with Cumbria. There's certain teams at this moment in time that, if you're the NRL and if you can, through our version of a Queensland Cup, increase attendances from 790 at Oldham this weekend to 4,500, all of a sudden, we've already seen with York's attendances have gone up dramatically since being in Super League. We've seen the same with Bradford. Bradford up about 4,000 fans. So you can look at it and go, well, if you can generate 4,500 as a feeder club, it's just, Midland Hurricanes, it's in the middle of the country. Look at all the chimney pots. We give it a Super League title. We market it right. We do it the way the NRL do in terms of a 3-year program before a ball is even kicked. All of a sudden, Midland Hurricanes could become Super League. Sheffield Eagles could become a Super League club down the track. But under the current system, Craig, you can't see any of those aforementioned teams becoming a Super League club.
No, you can't. You can't. And I guess another one that you look at is Doncaster. Financially, they're recruiting well and spending a lot of money now, and they've got the backing of the football club behind them as well. So another club that you could say are a very, very attractive proposition for a Super League club is Doncaster. Yeah. But you can't imagine that's going to happen within the next year, 2, 3. So
no.
There's got to be some sort of system in place that allows teams to be able to do that. But at the same time, like you said, generating some interest in a standalone competition where the access to better players or more players is going to be open there for teams to use. And I'm sure there would be, if it did go down that feeder team route, I'm sure there would be some agreement in place or some sort of format in place. But it's got to change from when I go back to my first year back at Batley as assistant coach to John Keir, when we went dual reg with Huddersfield Giants, and basically at the start of the season, we'll give you 8 players. You can choose from 8 players every single week. 5 players you could have at the time. You can have. We'll give you a choice of 8 players. You'll take the 5 that you want. So as a result, Batley didn't recruit as many people because they thought they've got a pool of 8 people there. I think we got about 4 players all season. So Battler's recruitment drive at the start of the season were less because they thought they were going to get this separate pool of 8 players from a Super League team, which didn't really materialise after week 2, week 3 of the season, which when a Super League team's struggling with injuries, they're always going to pull their players back and fatten out the squad that they need. So, there's got to be some sort of format in place and some sort of proposal in place to make sure that standalone competition, if it did go down that route, it was viable, it was sustainable, and it weren't just something like you can see at the reserve team fixtures at the minute where they can just cancel a reserve team fixture because they haven't got enough players to play it.
Yeah, I mean, we're all looking at it with interest. I mean, Matt, it was interesting that, again, going back to the Martin Jepson interview, and again, it's that, I find this really odd, but, he was talking about when he's bumped into other CEOs, have you heard anything? It's like, how are they not more in the... It's bonkers, isn't it? And again, that just makes you scratch your head. Surely we're at a point now where they should know more than they do. I mean, it can't be, it's anyway... Please God, we all love this great sport, and I think we're all at that point now where we understand that change has to come, and it has to come quickly because we want this to be. I genuinely believe with the right investment, the right marketing, and really doing it right with the expertise of, dare I say, the NRL who've done it and got the T-shirt. Why can't rugby league be the fastest growing sport over the next 25 years in the UK? Why not?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing for me. I think whatever we do now, we've got to get it right, and we've got to have a long-term plan in place because I think we're at a situation now, Crossroads now with rugby league, that I think there's never been a more openness or a more acceptance that things do need to change. And I don't think we've ever been in this position with rugby league before because of, I guess, the personal. That's my club. I don't want to lose my club. I don't want to, there's that ownership, that protectiveness, really, where you want to protect your identity and protect your tradition and your heritage, which you 100% get. But I think because of the way that the game's going at the minute and I guess the lack of eyes on the sport and the lack of people that are coming through now, I think we're in the best time possible now for some sort of acceptance to change. So it's got to be well thought out and it's got to be implemented correctly.
There's no point having a heritage if the team's there no more.
No.
Yeah, that's the bottom line, and I think that, like I said, under that feeder, you've still got that identity, you've still got that dream, and you've still got an opportunity of winning silverware under your current badge.
Yeah, it's one of those. And again, I think even if you go back 18 months, if you would have said to the supporters of any club really that, and I know we've lost some clubs and some clubs have been very, very close, but if you would have said 18 months ago that Salford could be gone, Featherstone could be gone, Halifax could be gone, Oldham could be gone. I know North Wales are in difficulty, but they're different to the other 4.
Yeah.
The other 4 have been established and around for decades. So if you would have said that 18 months ago to the rugby league establishment and the rugby league community, they would have said no, they'd laughed you out of the room. But we nearly lost Salford. We have lost Featherstone for however long. We nearly lost Halifax, or we did for a couple of weeks and they came back. And we don't know what's happening with Oldham now. So
we've lost North Wales.
And we've not lost North Wales, yeah. And there's also rumours bubbling underneath the surface about other clubs, which I won't go into. Because
Yeah, I know, mate. I know. Like I say, it needs to happen. It needs to happen fast. And the custodians of our game, please, this isn't about the now. This is also about the future. It's who'd be an owner, who'd be involved. But, as lovers of the great game of rugby league, the sport is the god is the big thing. It's the sport. And we've got to get this right, as you say. Right. Well, I don't apologise. This week's episode got into a bit there, but it's been a really good chat around. I think it's important as things change in rugby league and in the championship that this programme with Craig does go in different directions and focuses on these things. It's very, very important that we go there. And hopefully we've had a balanced debate on that and you understand where we're coming from. We haven't got the answers, but I'd be interested to know in the chat what your thoughts are based on that early discussion. Let's have a quick whistle-stop tour of the weekend's action, starting at Doncaster. We prayed that Doncaster would give London something to play for. And they did. They came out fighting. They were 10-6 up, then they were 16-6 up, and then, things turned in London's favour. Yeah. London answered the question, what would they do if they come under stress? And Doncaster showed, do you know what? It's a possibility to go and take one off London.
Yeah, and I think we're at the last sort of 8, 9, 10 minutes of the game where London scored three or four tries at the end of the game. So I guess what they've shown is that, I said last week with London's test, is when they are tested, have they got what it takes to come through the other side, and they've proved that they can do that. But Doncaster have also shown as well how good they are this year, that they've pushed that team the fantastic team, a Super League team, I guess, in waiting. They pushed them for 70, 71, 72 minutes of that game and very, very nearly got over the line. So, they'll, as disappointed as they will be for not getting that victory, they'll take a lot of heart from that the next time they play them, that they are beatable. They're not superhuman. There's a possibility there they can go down to London and beat them.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more. Well done, Doncaster. Good to see London getting tested. But of course, now they've lost the position in the league. More on that a little bit later, of course. They've been overtook now by a few teams. Dewsbury Rams 54, Rochdale Hornets 18. Good win this for Dewsbury. And for those that love a bit of biff, Jamie Dallimore and Danny Addy both seeing red for a little bit of violent conduct. Wonderful stuff.
Yeah, back to the old school, I know. Certainly with them two players as well. That's from a previous generation with them two players. But so I was surprised, to be fair, that the margin of victory, Rochdale would have been fully confident after beating us the previous week. And I guess maybe March is justified in resting people for the previous week in the 1895 Cup. I know, speaking to GT after the Rochdale game, they were really struggling injuries wise and bodies wise at the same time as what we were doing. So, we had a bit of a text exchange in the days leading up to our game, saying, "Can we just play nine aside, 20 minutes each way, and then go for a couple of pints of Guinness?" And I think both of us would have taken that at the time.
I don't think you've ever said no to a pint of Guinness, Mr. Lingard, is what I would say. Never at all. Extra cold, no less. Widnes Vikings, 54 points to 0 over Halifax. What a thumping this was for Halifax. Outstanding performance. And we talked about crowds, over 2,000. And Widnes are one of those clubs that, if they were back in Super League and punching, I'm saying I'm going to go safe. You're north of 5,000 easily, at Widnes. So, like I say, there's opportunity for growth there. But what a win this was. For Widnes, Alan Coleman will be delighted with that. 54-0.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're 32-0 at half time as well, weren't it? So I think that's one of them games where pretty much everything that did came off. You sometimes have games like that during the season where the bounce of the ball goes your way and some of the decisions go your way and everything seems to click and the passes stick and some weeks it happens, some weeks it doesn't. I think that was one of them games for Widnes this week where they were absolutely outstanding and everything that they did were absolutely perfect. And I think if you're Halifax as well, you just got to take that on the chin and just sort of think, well, we're not going to get that every single week. And it's they're still in that rebuilding phase themselves. And I guess with the players that they've got or the lack of players that they've got in terms of their squad depth, people will be playing 60% fit, 70% fit that probably need a bit of a rest. And these weeks are going to come. They're going to get weeks where they're going to get victories and they're going to have real good performances. But unfortunately, they're going to have weeks where they're going to be on the back end of some bad defeats just because of the fatigue of the squad and the players that they've got access to. So I think if you're Halifax, you should take it on the chin and dust yourself down and go again. But if you're Widnes, you're going to take a lot of pleasure from that because they're playing very, very well.
Playing it very, very well indeed. It'll be absolutely delighted. Speaking of Widnes, of course, their loss was your game. Jordan Abdul, of course, you picked up Jordan for Sheffield. 38-26, a proper score fest, this one. But Jordan absolutely repaid your faith in him. He had a great game, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And the first half, we did the damage in the first half. It was 28-4 at half time. And we weren't brilliant in the first half, but Jordan, doing what Jordan does, getting us around the field, ending the sets well, and making the right options, and we got the points on the board just to get us through a tricky second half because we were pretty ordinary in the second half. But full credit to Salford for coming at us and completing high and putting us under a bit of pressure. But disappointingly for us this week, Widnes have been very, very selfish and told us that we can't play Jordan Abdul against Widnes. I don't know why they've done that.
Oh, well. What
very selfish. Very selfish.
Well, that's right. Almost as selfish as Castleford getting Jimmy back. And, of course, Jimmy went over for you, didn't it? I mean, great. I like Jimmy Beckett. I like him a lot. You'll be gutted that obviously he has been called back. I mean, again, I know it's Super League, but Ryan Carr didn't hold back, did he, in that post-match press conference? Good luck to him. But if you're going to do that, you've got to back it up. And what we've seen this week at Castleford, Jimmy obviously recalled. Brad Dwyer, I think, is going over there from Salford this week. They brought in PLT. They brought in Tyler Dupree. So he's certainly given himself the opportunity of changing his squad, hasn't he, at Castleford this week with those?
Yeah, I think he has. I think maybe there were a little bit of criticism previously when he said that before and not made too many changes. Yeah. So he's had to do that this week. He's had to make them changes and bring people in. And going back to Jim, I think Jim has done exactly what what a player needs to do when they drop down to Championship from the Super League club and they're going out on loan. They need to be one of the best players on the park. And I think the 3 games that Jimmy's played for us, I think he's been our best middle. So from a Castleford point of view, from a Jimmy Beckett point of view, he's done exactly what he needed to do to put himself back in the shop window, that when the parent club has injuries or suspensions or has a poor game, that they're going to drag him straight back and put him straight back in. And hopefully for Jimmy this week, them 3 weeks that he's had with us has given the opportunity now to get back into that Castleford side and cement a place in there and play for some consecutive weeks.
Well, by all accounts, he's gone back to Castleford very, very confused. Every time he puts home in his sat-nav, it's going to Sheffield, which was a nice touch, Mr. Lingard. Very nice touch indeed. Well done. Batley 46, Gould 10. Good win for Batley. Great win, 46-10 at home to Gould. They'll be over the moon with that one.
Yeah, definitely. I think another strong second half performance. I think down the hill in the second half for Batley putting the points on the board, but they'll be really pleased from the previous league game getting beat by Salford. So it's really important for Batley to get back on the winning ladder. So they'll be really pleased about that. Gould obviously they'll be disappointed with that. I think they would be, from the previous couple of weeks games that they'd had. I know they had a victory against Whitehaven and a loss against Whitehaven, but I know we said previously they need to start getting a little bit of consistency about them now. But I would imagine they'll be disappointed with that result.
Massive result for Newcastle over Barrow. Barrow have been going really, really well, haven't they? 37-22. The King, Wunyayawa, love that name. The King on the score sheet for Newcastle. Great win for them.
Yeah, it's massive. We've talked about Barrow quite a lot this year, haven't we? About how good they've been and how well they're playing so far. For Newcastle to turn Barrow over, it's a huge result for them back where they are this season. I mentioned last week that would the consistency of the teams that they're playing this year have an impact in that game? Obviously, it didn't. So I guess it's the consistency of winning, that confidence of winning, and that's seeing them through. So that's a huge win for Newcastle, is that? And I would imagine that Barrow again will be disappointed about that one and not maintaining their winning ways.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we spoke about Oldham. What a win. 74-4 at Workington. At home, to Workington. Riley Dean, hat-trick for Riley. Good lad. Well done. But, I mean, again, that's a big win. I mean, we haven't seen that many blowout scores, to that extent. And, Oldham, the Lord giveth with one hand, he takes away with the other. What a great win that is for any of the travelling, for the Oldham fans who are at home. And then, of course, for what's happened this week. But at least he had a good weekend. They must have enjoyed coming away from that one. Yeah,
definitely. I think you can see the quality and the squad depth that Oldham have got as well. There were no Morgan Smith playing, no Jack Walker playing. So 2 of their consistent players that have been in that team this year, and they can still put 70 points on the board against the Workington team. So they've been very, very strong of Oldham this year. It's just like we've said a little bit earlier, haven't we? It's now slightly winning times for them. Is there going to be a fire sale? A players going to start jumping ship and going to other clubs? We don't know what the situation is going to be, but it's got to be a little bit worrying for them. But points on the board at this moment in time for Oldham, 14 points in the table I think they've got now. So they're sitting pretty at this moment in time. But I guess it's watch this space.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, you say there like the Jack Walker out. Kieran Dixon's not a bad replacement, though.
No, he's not.
Let's be fair. He's had a good career, Kieran, hasn't he? He's fast. I remember when he first broke onto this. I remember it was London. I remember him coming and in his infancy when he first broke through, and he set off, and I'm like, wow. I mean, how quick was he in his prime? He was like, wow, what a speed merchant he was. Incredible. Good to see him still enjoying his rugby league. Swinton Lions, Keighley, 22-all. So I think, well done, Swinton. They'll be Swinton.
Yeah, I think they've strengthened a little bit of Swinton, haven't they? I think they've got a few players in from North Wales. So I guess one team's negative is another team's positive, isn't it? So that's what Swinton will be looking at now is trying to pick some players up to bring them into the squad to fatten out that squad depth. Just so when they get some injuries or some people that aren't particularly playing too well or they have a bad game, they've got the option and opportunity to bring some better quality players in to force a few changes. So it's a massive result for Swinton. I think it's right in saying it's the first point of the season. So yeah, congratulations, Swinton there.
Yeah, exactly. Great for the fans. I mean, again, we talk about fans. There'll be loyal fans that have been to every one of those games this year that have, I've not seen the team come away with anything. So 22-22, Christmas Day there, outstanding. Well done to each and every one of them. And I think the last one, I think we've covered them all, bar Whitehaven against Hunslet. Hunslet going to Whitehaven, getting a 30 points to 10 win in that one. Probably as we expected it to go, but Hunslet will be delighted to have got the job done.
Yeah, they will. I guess Hunslet will be delighted to have 17 players on the team sheet as well, won't they, this week? I know they're going to get 1 or 2 players in on loan, so that certainly helped them. And they're going about the business quite nicely. Hunslet, I mean, they're going under the radar a little bit now, climbing under the table, climbing up the table, getting some victories on the board, and they're sneaking up now towards the playoffs, aren't they? So yeah, good little bit of form that Hunslet have got, getting a few victories on the board in quick succession.
Yeah, absolutely. So games then this weekend. Let's quickly over him. Starting Saturday, forgive me, I've been in meetings all morning. Doncaster North Wales ain't happening on Friday. I think
no, it's been cancelled already.
That's gone. So Saturday, we've got Goole taking on London. In the interest of time, I know you've got places to go. Can't see any issues for London there, can you?
No, you can't. You can't see anything happening there other than a London victory.
The next one, though, maybe not as easy. Newcastle, great win last week, going up against Batley. Could be a good game, that one. That could be a real tussle.
Yeah, another one that we say with the cup games, it's weird how it happens with cup games where you play each other in quick succession. It's only a few weeks back where Batley went up to Newcastle and they got beaten, didn't they? So they'll be looking to make amends from that. You say Newcastle, they'll be full of confidence from their victory at the weekend, but again, it's all about the players that Newcastle have access to. They seem to be consistent this year and getting access to the same sort of players or similar sort of players. So you would have thought that if Newcastle are at full strength or close to full strength, then you might slip the side slightly towards them.
Maybe, yeah. 3 o'clock kickoff for Goole, 4 o'clock kickoff at Newcastle. All Sunday games, 3 o'clock kickoffs. Starting Barrow against Oldham. Now, of course, massive question marks on this one. Had there not been any question marks, how do we not have had the announcement today and the uncertainty, and it was plug and play? This had a cracker written all over it. But do you think with the uncertainty around Oldham that advantage Barrow?
It's hard to say. It's very, very difficult to say. You don't know if there's going to be some quick movement of players out there. You don't know what the availability is. You don't know whether players have been told that they're free to find other clubs if they can do.
It's hard to concentrate on rugby then, isn't it, if that's the case?
It is. There's 1 or 2 ways that it goes. There's one way where you don't know what's going on, so you can fall apart slightly. The other way is, look, let's control what we can control, and that's going out there and playing well and doing the best that we can. You can develop that siege mentality. So it's one of them. It depends on which way it goes. There's a lot of experienced players in that Oldham tehave So I would imagine that if they're going up there full strength, I would have thought that they would do it very, very professionally and play to the best of their ability. And I wouldn't have thought it'd impact on too much. But it has got the makings of a great game. Barrow will be wanting to get back onto winning ways at home as well. Always difficult going up to Barrow. They play very, very well on their own patch to Barrow as well. So it's there's a lot of unknown answers to questions that have developed here, I guess, in the last sort of 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, time's ticking, isn't it? Time's ticking. Dewsbury Rams taking on Whitehaven again. I think it's hard to look past Dewsbury for that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. For playing very well, Dewsbury certainly at home as well, putting in some very good performances. And you would have thought with Whitehaven coming on the back of that defeat as well, and Dewsbury on the back of a very, very good victory over Rochdale, you'd side towards Dewsbury on that one.
Yeah, I think so. Hunslet Workington. Do you know what? Your thoughts on this one? Hunslet at home, so yeah. I'll probably go home advantage on this one.
Yeah, I think so. And again, it depends on the players that Hunslet can get in from on loan from other teams. They had a couple from Doncaster last week. Will they get them two from Doncaster again? Not sure if there's a reserve fixture or not this week. Will they get a couple? Or the opportunity to get a couple in from Leeds? So I guess it depends on the external players that Hunslet can bring in. Workington coming off the back of a really disappointing defeat at Oldham, so you would suggest that the home advantage and the form that Hunslet are showing at the minute, that they'd be favourites for that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. We go to Keighley against Halifax. Halifax off the back of that absolute pasting. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if Halifax just turned full circle here and got a win at Keighley. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you might be right. I guess Keith, they'll be really disappointed about only getting a draw at Swinton
yeah.
and not getting the 2 points over there. So they'll be really disappointed about that one. I think with the quality that Halifax have got, like I said previously, you don't know sometimes 1 week to the next what they're getting, but they've got whatever 17 they put out there. It's a strong 17, and I think that Halifax will probably get back onto winning ways this week.
Yeah, Swinton against Midland. I mean, Midland, I think, have been surprise package has probably been a bit. I don't know, but did they expect what we've got from Midland? Not to this extent, for me personally. I think they've been, and not it's the manner in which they've been winning as well. It's not necessarily been the wins; it's the manner that they've been winning that I've been impressed with as well. It's hard to look past Midland at Swinton.
Yeah, it is. Swinton will be really, really pleased about the first point, and they'll take a lot of confidence from that. But with the way that Midlands have been playing this season, I expect them to be in and around the sort of top 6 of the table. Am I surprised that they're as high as they are? No, I'm not. So I would imagine that they'll get another victory this week.
Yeah, then save the best till last. You're going to win this. I mean, they would just have a great win the week before you go to win this, mate. Obviously, you've already said you've got a couple of players that won't be there from last week. We know you've got a few injuries. Anybody coming in
at this moment in time? No.
Is the fishing rod out?
It's out. It's out. There's not a lot of maggots or worms at the end of the hook at the minute, like. But
you cheapskate.
Yeah,
put like a proper fish on it, like, give them something to jump at.
We're trying. We're asking questions, but everybody's in a similar situation, bodies wise at the minute. We lost Jack Bussey at the weekend. He's touch and go. Whether he's fit as well, we're not expecting any of our injured players coming back either. So. It's all hands to the pumps at the minute, and we'll see what we can get out there on the field and have a good go over there. I think it's as I said to our players at training last night. We've been pretty disappointed with how we've been going this season with some of the performances that we've had, but ultimately we've won the same amount of games this year as we won all last year, and we've only played 9 games. We've been talking about how well Doncaster have done this year, how well Widnes have done, how well Oldham have done. We won one win behind them on the league table. So as disappointed as we've been with how we've played, we've lost some players. Jordan Lilly, Matty Marsh have gone for the season. Connor Fitzsimmons has been out for a good 6 weeks now, and he's not going to be back for another couple of months. We've been without Joel Farrell for 4 weeks. Connor Bauer's been missing for 4 weeks.
Farrell was in great form.
Yeah, it was. We've missed. Jack Bussey went out with a couple of weeks with HIA, and Alex Foster's been in and out for a while. Lewis Peachy missed a couple of weeks with HIA. So we've had a lot of people in and out of the team as well. So we've had a lot of adversity, and we've had a lot of people either not available or playing different positions which are not comfortable with playing. And we're still 12 points on the league table. So if we could start getting some of these players back and getting some players playing in their own positions, then for the second half of the season, then we're in a real good position to start building. Hopefully after this weekend's done, we can get Jordan Abdul in for a longer period of time, and then he can hopefully do what he did for us in that first half against Salford and start building some consistency and start building some performances. So yeah, it's frustrating that we're not playing as well as we want to do and as well as we need to do, but there's a long way to go this season, and I think where we are so far from what we've had to go through, I think we're in a pretty decent position.
Mate, absolutely. I think, as you say, at the start of the season, you'd probably have took this, wouldn't you? Especially with the injuries that you've had as well. I mean, you're in a decent spot. It's a shame really, because it'd have been great to have seen a fully fit Sheffield go up against Widnes this weekend, because I think that would have been a right tussle. I mean, defence is key, isn't it? That's the element here. Your opportunity in this game, you've got to be strong in D, because as they've shown this week, they're at the minute clearly attacking well. You're going to have to. Well, they're just going to have to turn up for each other, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. And Widnes are they're scoring a lot of points, aren't they, week in, week out? So they're playing a good brand of rugby. It's the stuff that they're doing, it's coming off. We just need to control what we can control, which is it's our line speed, our contact, our work in the ruck, and hopefully if we do that well and we put them under some pressure, then some of the players that Widnes are playing, they start making errors, and we can capitalise on that. If we stand off them and let them have a free rein and quick play the balls, and the nines jump out because we've got very, very smart nines, a big middle unit as well. If we just let ourselves get rolled down the middle of the field, then it's going to be a long afternoon for us. So we need to make sure that, you know, we front up defensively with that aggression, that enthusiasm as well, and see what we can do.
Well, I wish you luck, mate. You know, I wish you luck every week. But you are coming up against a team at the moment that, like I say, doing pretty, again, steady away. Very steady. They have been on season win this. Steady away, doing really, really well. Let's just quickly check in with the league. And this is the bottom half of the league. Of course, Halifax still down there at the bottom. Swinton, that magical point. They'll be delighted with that. That's worth its weight in gold. Then it's Goole, Whitehaven and Workington. Then Salford. Crusaders, of course, that will be changing, I'm sure. Rochdale, Hunslet, and then Batley in 11th. But then we get into the serious top half of the table, starting with is that right? Is that right? Is that last week?
No, it's not. We've got another victory.
Hang on a minute. I know what's happened there. I was that giddy that you came on the screen. I forgot to upload the right one. There you are. Is that right? Is that one right? No, that one's wrong. That one's wrong. Well, let me tell you, I do apologise for that. We haven't got the time. I'll tell you the top 10 are. Keighley, then Dewsbury, then Sheffield with 6 wins from now. Then it's Widnes, Newcastle, getting into the top 5 now. Oldham, then Donny, of course, dropping down as a consequence of last weekend, the loss to London. The Midland Hurricanes back up. They're there in 3rd. Barrow in 2nd, despite their loss. They're still there. And London sitting top of the pile. That's how it looks at this moment in time. We'll see how it looks next week. But love the chat today, mate. Absolutely loved every minute of that. Go well at Widnes. Best of luck to you, pal, as always. And of course, we'll be back next Wednesday. Wednesdays won't be the same now, would it? Without a bit of Craig and Championship.
We're down now.
Everybody does a bit of Championship Rugby League. On behalf of myself and Greg, try and get yourself down to these Championship games. Try and support the clubs if you can. Great standard of Rugby League. Well worth watching. We'll be back next week and unpacking it all with you. Thanks very much for your time. Bye for now.